In this episode of the portfolio, I will be doing an aptitude test. So, this is a basic rundown of what this test is you have to draw two frames in 2-point perspective depicting a scene. And the objective of this, the subject matter of this scene is it has to be someone at the office or like at their place of work, either sitting or standing. And you got to draw the exact same moment in time in two different perspectives. One of them farther away, and one of them close up. And both of them have to have the room in full view. So I decided to go for a radiation worker working at a nuclear power plant. I think it's reasonably. I don't think that would occur to most people. So I don't know. I guess it works in terms of subject matter. It's not too generic. So to prepare for this, I looked at the portfolios people had posted online that got accepted, and there's only three. One of them straight up didn't include this test. I'd be shocked if she got in without doing the test, so I assume she just forgot to upload it. Uh, One of them was pretty simple and straightforward, just like someone sitting at a desk from two angles, and I couldn't see anything wrong with it. It was pretty clean. Maybe not emphasizing the 2-point perspective a whole lot, but whatever. It was fine. Pretty much exactly as described in the description of what this test needs to be. Now, one of the guys that did it, he did like a dragon, a guy fighting a dragon, and I think he broke like pretty much every rule that was laid out in this aptitude test. Like you're not supposed to shade it, and he totally shaded it. Uh, there's nothing in those two panels that would like depict 2-point perspective, at least as far as I can tell. There's like no 2-point perspective going on. And they kind of emphasize this has to be done in 2-point perspective. So I assume this is like, hey, this is the test where it's like, all right, let's see your perspective skills. Let's see what you can do. So I really tried to emphasize that as much as possible. Really taking my time to get the vanishing points right, and just you can see that I did that curving perspective with like the curved wall. I think that's I think it turned out reasonably well, and that's sort of a reasonably advanced, or not reasonably advanced. I mean, it's not straightforward. I guess you gotta mirror a few points and stuff to make those curves work, and a little bit of guesswork. But I think it turned out all right. And yeah, I was just really meticulous on this, and part of the reason why I decided to trace over this with tracing paper, because I didn't draw directly onto the Bristol board for the finished lines, and that was because they wanted it to be as clean as possible. So yeah, it's the first time I've ever done that. I'm not 100% pleased with the final results, but it was kind of fun to draw in that way. It definitely results in a really clean drawing, which almost lacks any of the character of a sketch, and I think that's kind of why I don't like it. I like to see the little lines left over from the construction, even though they're not really supposed to be part of the drawing. So for the second panel, I was at a bit of a loss. I thought the first panel was pretty strong, but I couldn't quite come up with the second one. And so I did some thumbnailing, and looking at those thumbnails, I mean, I didn't pick the worst. I pretty much picked a pretty bad thumbnail. So on the second drawing here, it's a pretty weak angle, kind of straightforward. I thought of the idea of like having a reveal. So in the first panel you see something, but in the second panel you see that there's a monitor and it says it says meltdown. So it's like, oh, that's why that guy's there. It's something's bad going on. That's why there's all those empty chairs and he's the only one there for some reason. It's kind of a little reveal, telling a little story. But the angle absolutely sucks. It is 2-point perspective, technically. We got the central vanishing point, and then there isn't really a kind of side vanishing point. There's a vanishing point at the bottom, like way below, outside of frame, and that's because the viewing angle was not parallel with the plane, the ground plane. So you got that point way down, but it's super subtle and just really not a great angle. So I decided to just completely scrap that after spending forever on that drawing, and go for a somewhat more uh, somewhat more complicated. I wasn't 100% wanting to do the whole ceiling again because I had like a really complicated ceiling, and yeah, it sucks to draw, but it does definitely represent 2 Point way better, and it also ties the composition, the two panels together a bit more. Because what I was thinking is, in the first one, you see two walls. You see the computers, and then you see those light boards at the back, which were supposed to represent the little lights they have to show the status of the reactor core. So you have those two. And then in the second panel, we have two different walls, which are supposed to be like windows looking on to the core, the reactor itself. So you get the whole view of the room. And the only things that really connect the two are the character, obviously, and also the ceiling. The ceiling is kind of unique. It was something that I came across when I was looking at pictures of reactor control rooms, and I thought it was an interesting look. So I feel that the ceiling really ties the two images together. And also, I really paid attention to detail. Like, there's that chair that kind of appears in both, and I feel it's in the same place in both frames. And that's one thing that I noticed with the actual example that the Algonquin website has, is they got this little example of the 2 Point perspective aptitude drawing test. And I don't want to be overly critical, but in terms of accuracy, they did a really bad job of that little example. And it's mainly because they said that in between the two frames, no time has passed. You are showing the exact same moment in time in both frames. And with their little example on their website, the right arm is bent in one scene of the character, and then in the next scene, the left arm is bent. So it's like just kind of careless, not paying attention to detail, which, I mean, whatever. At a glance, it looks fine, but it is sort of a little bit sloppy, in my opinion, considering that's the example they have on their website of the aptitude test. So anyways, there's that. And also, when you look at where things are positioned on the ground, they're not quite making sense. There's kind of a column in one shot that is completely non-existent in the other shot, and it's super obvious that not a whole lot of attention was paid to where things were positioned in the ground. And I mean, it probably doesn't matter. My extremely over-analytical mind would say that maybe they did that to show that detail doesn't matter, but I don't know. I mean, really, in this video series, you're seeing my slow descent into madness because I'm overanalyzing everything. I think, like, I'm just so convinced that I will never pass this test because it's all or nothing, right? Like, it's either you do it or you don't. And I just can't convince myself that I'm going to make it unless I just overanalyze everything to the max. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure that this, even though it's not the best, it's like whatever. I think it's still just as good, if not better, than the examples in the portfolios that made it. But I think my biggest issue is that maybe these drawing tests don't matter a whole lot, and it's all about the life drawing, because of the three portfolios, even though I'd consider myself better at drawing for two of them, all three have pretty good life drawing, and my life drawing sucks, so that is an issue. Anyways, we're coming up to the end here. I completely, my camera completely fucked up and lost the time lapse of me doing the pencil work for the second panel, so we're just gonna skip that. Boom, here's the finished result. It's meh. It's okay. I think it gets the job done. It works. Aptitude test over. In the next episode, I don't know, maybe the self portrait, maybe some life drawing. Goodbye.